Hello and welcome to another episode of Taylor Talks Comics. Today we're going to be talking about Aliens and Predator. Alright, thank you guys for watching. Please give the video a thumbs up, please subscribe, and please comment down below with any of your thoughts. So, Dark Horse Comics has long had the license for Aliens comics and Predator comics. This is, so they've been putting together these hardcovers, which are just beautiful additions to the line. They've also come out with a Terminator hardcover that matches this exactly. And just the other day was the Alien vs. Predator hardcover. So that's why I wanted to do this video, to show people how great these editions are and why you should go buy them. So let's start off with Aliens, because that kick-started the whole thing. So this is the 30th anniversary of the original comic series by Dark Horse. So Dark Horse Comics, when they started in the late 80s, I believe, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, maybe it was mid-80s, one of the first big things they were able to do was get the Aliens license and start writing comic books. And they were written by Mark Verheiden, who's one of the main figures of Dark Horse Comics. It's one of the earlier series that he wrote. I believe the American came prior to this. But they were able to do the Aliens license comic books, and it was a huge hit for them. Really carried Dark Horse, and they've had the license ever since. And they then went on to get the RoboCop license, the Terminator license, the Predator license, and I think, unfortunately, a lot of people that have not read these comics kind of toss them away as like, okay, those are just licensed comics, those are never good, those are just kind of a money grab kind of thing. Much to my chagrin, because I don't believe that's to be the case at all. And these hardcover editions are just, like I said, they're immaculate, they're wonderful. And I wanted to show them off and how awesome they are. Sorry, I'm grabbing some props here. So these are way oversized. They're library editions. Here's like a single issue comic book. There's a random issue of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers that I found. You can see the dimensions are well over the height of an average comic book and the height, or the width of it too. And then here's the oversized hardcover that Marvel had put out. This is the House of X Powers of 10 hardcover. And this is the same size as an omnibus, which DC and Marvel both have the same trim size for their omnibuses. And you can see that it's still taller than it and wider than it. And then the last comparison is the DC Absolute, which this is V for Vendetta. And it kind of comes right in line with that. Let's see if I can show it on camera. This is out of the slipcase, by the way. So it's kind of like just barely shorter than it. And just barely. So, in conclusion, if you're not familiar with the trim size, it's basically the same size as an Absolute from DC Comics. That's what I'm trying to get at here. So well oversized, which is great because the artwork in all of these comics is wonderful. Now this is the original comic series, and like I showed you off the spines, but the cool thing is the edge of the pages is this gilded, I don't know if that's the right word, I don't know if it's going to show up on camera, but like that shiny edge to it. Yeah, you would get it in like really fancy editions of books from back in the day. There you go, you can kind of see it. And each edition has that. So like the blue, this is the second volume, ostensibly. It's not labeled as a second volume, but it is. It has like a shiny blue. And then the Predator one has a shiny red. So really cool. You don't see that often on comic book editions. So this first Aliens hardcover is the 30th anniversary of the original comic series. And you got a short table of contents. These are the stories, and includes Outbreak, Lucky, and a pinup gallery. So it's not a ton of comics, but they're wonderful nonetheless. Here's an introduction by Mark Verheiden, written in 2015, which I believe is when this was published. This hardcover I'm talking about. And Mark Verheiden was a writer and producer. Credits include Time Cop, Battlestar Galactica, Falling Skies, and Marvel's Daredevil. So these, as you can see, are in black and white. And that's how the original Aliens comics were published back in the day when they first came out. They were in black and white. There's been since colored editions. So these comic books have been collected in a number of different ways. Obviously, single issues is what they came out with originally. They've been collected into these small, like almost digest-sized books. This is Alien Legion, obviously. No relation to the Aliens comics, by the way. It's just the same shrimp size. But Dark Horse would put out these like short, like almost digest-sized comic books that are smaller than your average comic book issue. They were collected in this version. I believe there's like 4 or 5 volumes of Aliens comics collected in this format. And when they're collected in there, they were colored. So they went back and colored the comic books. Dark Horse has also released, kind of in conjunction with these hardcovers, regular sized trade paperbacks called Aliens Essential Comics. They're like your standard trade paperback size, and they kind of match with this. This is a completely different story, takes place much later. I'm just showing this off as like what they kind of look like. They're in these trade paperbacks, and they're colored editions as well. So if you have a sort of aversion to black and white comics, you might want to go that route. But the only fashion that these have been collected in oversized format is in black and white in this edition. And I love black and white comics. I think black and white comics that are done well are some of the best comics. And by done well, I mean having distinguishing features of the characters so you can tell which characters are different. That's a kind of a challenge you have with black and white comics sometimes, because all of the characters can look kind of samey if they don't. With color, you can give them different colored clothes that they usually wear, different colored hair, that kind of thing. But the artwork in here is just absolutely incredible. Again, I want to give credit to the artist. I believe, is it the same guy throughout? Yeah, I believe it is. So it's Mark A. Nelson. And it has like this obsessive, like, every panel needs to be filled in with like a background or saliva on the aliens or blood or whatever. And it reminds me a lot of like those black and white comics, the black and white comics boom of the 80s. Especially highlighted by the Eastman and Laird Ninja Turtles. And the reason why I make that connection is because this was all done on duo shade board, where you can see like the different tones. I'm not a master of media and comic book making, but I do know this was done on duo shade board, much like the original Ninja Turtles comics. And these comics in this edition are stories that take place after Aliens the movie. So there was Alien that came out, was the first movie, and then Aliens was the sequel. That was done by James Cameron. This acts as like the sequel to Aliens. These comic books came out prior to Aliens 3, which is the reason why if you read this, you'll see like conflicting stories happening throughout. And those things kind of get retconned or changed throughout the history of Aliens comics. So this is the second edition. Like I said, this is ostensibly the sequel or volume 2 of the series, but it's not labeled as such. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that Aliens comics kind of took on, because of the issues that they had with kind of meeting the continuity of the movies, with, like I said, with this edition, and the fact that like Aliens 3 kind of screwed things up. Aliens kind of took on this thing of having like completely different stories based on whoever the creator was or the writer was. They kind of did their own thing, their own self-contained stories that didn't have to fit in any line with any sort of continuity. And that's what you see here. In this edition, you'll notice, is in color. So we get another introduction by Mark Verheiden. And he writes both of the main stories in here. You can see this includes Nightmare Asylum and Earth War. He writes both stories. The first one's illustrated by Din Bovai. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing that wrong, someone please correct me. And lettered by Bob Pinaha and Dave Jackson. The next one's written by Mark Verheiden, illustrated by Sam Keith, which is really interesting, and then colored by Monica Livingston. Lettered by Jim Massara and Pat Brasso. I don't know. Again, forgive me for mispronouncing names. Again, you get like I said, you get an introduction. And then you get this awesome airbrushed art, which again, I love black and white comics, but I'm not going to deny how beautiful these look with this airbrushed art. And you just get more Alien comics. And the reason why I want to highlight these, because Aliens comic books I feel like are some of the best horror comics that don't get enough credit. And I wish more people would look at them and watch and read them. So this is I believe, the next story, right? Yes, Earth War starts on 107, and that's the Sam Keith story, right? Yeah, Earth War. So this is early Sam Keith artwork. And it has like this very texture-heavy intensity to it, but it doesn't look very Sam Keith-ish. Like Sam Keith would go on to have this very distinct and raw, like visceral style. You don't see that here. However, the artwork is still incredible. And these books there's plenty of blood and gore, and they are horror books. They are for teenagers or adults. If you're a parent, you be the judge kind of thing. But just incredible work. Just fun comics. Fun comics. So it's Aliens, and then Aliens Volume 1 and 2, I guess I'm going to call it. And this is Predator. As you can see on this edition, it's pretty dinged up. I had to get this from Amazon, which is, if you're familiar with buying books from Amazon, it's always a mistake. But it wasn't in stock on in-stock trades at the time. I think it is now. So I took the chance of buying it from Amazon because I was afraid it was going out of stock forever. However, it did come back into stock, so I think Dark Horse intends to keep these kind of evergreen. And that's the first Predator comics. They're written by... So Mark Verheiden, again, is writing all of these. The first one's penciled by Chris Warner, and then you get Ron Randall. He kind of takes over the back half of Concrete Jungle, and he does the rest of Cold War and Dark River. And you see all the other credits there. So Chris Warner is a fantastic artist from this era that I really dig. I believe he also drew the Terminator comics, if I'm not mistaken. So this is Predator. And if you're familiar with the Predator movies, the difference between Aliens movies and Predator movies, I like to say, are like, the Aliens movies are like sci-fi horror, and Predator movies are kind of like action horror. So they have like, they're action movies with tinges of horror elements. And that also resides, those themes also reside with the comic books. So this Predator comic, this original series, took place after the first Predator movie. After the success of the Aliens comics, Dark Horse would then grab a hold of the Predator license, because they were both owned by the same film company, and they would go on to make Predator comic books. Again, very much successful. And again, this story takes place after the first Predator movie, so this is prior to the Danny Glover Predator 2 movie. And this is kind of like what Chris Warner and Mark Verheiden would imagine would be the sequel to Predator. Again, just an awesome action movie. And this story plays out like a summer blockbuster action movie from the awesome artwork that you see, but also the writing, because you get lots of one-liners. Just fun one-liners from the guy who's leading the story, who is Dutch Schaefer's brother. So if you're familiar with the first Predator movie, Arnold Schwarzenegger plays Schaefer. It's a great two-page spread. His brother is the star of this comic book. I don't know if that's because they couldn't get the likeness to Arnold Schwarzenegger, or if maybe Verheiden and Warner just wanted to create their own continuity. But it all takes place of Dutch Schaefer's brother trying to... he's a detective from New York. So the second Predator movie takes place in L.A., and this one takes place in New York. But it has the same theme where the first Predator movie took place in the jungle, and these both take place in urban areas where there's a particular... at this particular time, there's like a heat index is going crazy. Because, as you know, predators only hunt in the heat. However, in the sequel to that comic book, they go to an Arctic area. And how the heck can predators fight in the Arctic? And look at this imagery. Again, not for the faint of heart, not for children, but the classic imagery of the predator ripping someone's head off with the spine attached. That's what you get in these comic books. And I've read a lot of Aliens comic books and a lot of, here's a bookmark to my latest reading of this book. A lot of Aliens comic books and a lot of Predator comic books, which I'll highlight on this channel too, because there's a lot of modern runs that need to be highlighted as well. And one formula that I found that always works is in every issue, you need to have some sort of blood and guts scene, some sort of, dismembering, some sort of cutting off the head, some sort of action scene. And every great Predator Aliens comic has that. I have read some, like I think it was the Predator versus Tarzan issue. Issue number 1 had no action scenes whatsoever. And I know that's like an ongoing miniseries, but like, I feel like it's kind of the formula. If you're going to do an Aliens Predator comic books, you need to have some sort of brutal action scene within every issue. And if I know you're telling a linear story, but that's just how you have to do it. You need to use some like Quentin Tarantino timeline magic to make that happen if you need to. However, these are all great comic books. I have the Aliens vs. Predator hardcover that matches all of these on the way. I have purchased that from Inside Trades. And when that comes in, I will be doing a video over that as well. And they will all match very nicely on my shelf because these spines are great. And even though they're all different colors, they all match. And like I said, there's a Terminator book, which I need to get, that matches these, and then the Aliens vs. Predator book. And as of now, those are the only ones that have been published or on the docket to be published. But I hope Dark Horse continues this line, because there's a whole plethora of Aliens and Predator comic books that need to be put into these editions. So thank you for watching. Like I said, please like and subscribe, share with your friends, comment below with your favorite Aliens or Predator comic books, or if you've picked these up, or maybe you've picked up the smaller digest versions and you are fine with those. Let me know. Thank you guys for watching.